All right, welcome back to Root Notes, the podcast about dealing with this complexity and talking about what's up the road. Mm-hmm. Where's the route taking you? You got your bags packed. You're about to head out.
Yeah, my bags are packed, and I'm getting ready to fly out tomorrow to Minnesota to wrap up with some folks, an organization we've been working with for a while. Very excited about it. It's been
a fun project.
It really has. I mean, they're just doing cool stuff, and you know, they're a fun group to work with because they've really embraced this sort of concept of story and the power of story and helping not just the people in the organization, but the community see themselves in the story of the work that they do.
Right.
And it's
just for context, so we've been working with them on strategies,
Yeah.
strategic planning.
That's right.
Which doesn't necessarily always involve story. But...
Yeah, you're right. No, it doesn't. I mean, we've been doing this work now for, 15 years or more. Yeah. Helping organizations of all types, do planning and assessment, strategic planning particularly. And, when we started out, we were like a lot of folks in that we were very process driven, right?
Yeah, right.
We have a framework, and frameworks are not a bad thing. And we still have a framework, but we often get so distracted and down in the weeds with things like theories of action and KPIs and that sort of thing, that we kind of lose track of the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. And so we really have moved over time and evolved to really think about this as a story, right? Mm-hmm. The stories are sort of fundamental to who we are. It's how we connect. It's how we get to know each other. That's no different with an organization. And so that's been extremely powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, more and more, I think as it evolved, we started asking people to think about their story to this point and where they want to see their story go. And then that became how we got access to the strategy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that most folks don't realize is that when you're down in the weeds, looking at an individual objective or something like that,
right?
It feels impersonal. You just don't really feel how this is going to be impactful. And so we kind of stopped doing that. In order to sort of glean a strategy out of this, we step back and say, what do you want the story to be?
Right.
Like, what's the trajectory been? Where do you want it to go?
And we end up with strategies, goals, objectives.
We end up there.
All of that through the story. Like a minute ago, you said you have to stop people and then look at the big picture. It's interesting that you use that language because I think the thing that we sometimes get caught up in are these conceptual things.
Yeah.
Right? These abstract things that are in some ways the big picture. Mm-hmm. We get at the big picture by boiling it down to like, okay, what is the story of your organization? What is the experience of the people who benefit from your work?
Yeah.
Like we boil it down in some ways to this human thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And then out of that, we go, oh, this is the big picture.
Yeah. And by the time you are able to articulate that, you see the path. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty easy to say, do you see the strategy emerging, right?
Right.
And emergent strategy is far more useful, in my opinion, than trying to distill it down to strategy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's the game changer that we've discovered in the last few years is that the stories actually carry the strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
And we've even gotten more comfortable. I'm thinking about, so we were doing this facilitation, the strategic planning session. We had 80 people in the room.
Oh, yeah, recently.
And we were working, I mean, these were engineers and planners and county managers and parks and rec people because we were there talking about green space, thinking about greenways, trail systems for a region. Yep. And we were talking about the majority of the population of a state being represented by the folks in that room. Right?
That's right.
And we're facilitating a day-long strategic planning.
Sure. And
it was going well.
Yeah, it was great.
It was going well. But, after lunch, you always got a challenge as a facilitator to be even more, right? To bring even more.
Right. It's hard to have that energy in the afternoon.
And the group actually had, there's 80 people in the room. And they had this huge lunch.
They did.
You remember,
I do.
Like barbecue and all this. Anyway, so during lunch, I get a phone call, and it's my kid's school.
Oh, yeah.
You remember this?
I do.
So I answer the phone, and my son has Fragile X syndrome, if you don't know. And so he's got intellectual disabilities, and he's got some really challenging behaviors sometimes. And he was having a rough patch at school. And so I get this phone call from the teacher, and next thing you know, I'm talking to my son, just trying to sort of talk him down and keep him at school so I can stay at this facilitation to finish the day, right? And so what I say to him, he absolutely loves going to the trail and spending time out by the river that we happen to live near. And so I said, buddy, if you could just, put it together, turn your day around, Dad's going to pick you up and we're going to go to the trail after your school day and we'll spend some time out there. And he is so excited about it. And he said, okay, Dad, I got it. The teacher's like, thank you so much. I get a text back as lunch is sort of wrapping up and I'm about to bring people back together. Oh, he's doing so much better. You really turned this around. So we're coming back. This was not planned. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're coming back and we're bringing the room together, and I can sort of feel the need for something.
Yeah.
And so I just decided in that moment, something I would not have done 15 years ago, which is to make it personal. I'm like, hey, what are we doing here? What we're doing here is talking about establishing the infrastructure. But why? For families like mine. And I tell this room the story of what has just happened. And that my son has disabilities, and that one of the places he can just be is out on the trail.
Yeah.
Without having to be corrected, without having to worry about his behavior. He can just be himself out in nature, walking that trail, checking out the river, skipping rocks across the river. And the room, and I said to the room, thank you for what you've already done.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
That created that possibility for us to have that as a goal for the day.
Man, and the energy lifted in that
room. You
room.
Remember?
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting off to the side, and I was sitting with some folks, and they straightened up in their chair, right?
Yeah.
And they leaned in, and they're smiling, and it recentered them into their purpose. Like
that's it.
Like we're here to talk about some things that are functional, as you say. We're talking about frameworks and infrastructure. But now there's purpose behind this again. And it needed that renewal in the afternoon. And so sharing those stories is so powerful in helping people, one, connect with you as a person. It's just the oldest form of communication. It's how we learn. It's how we, but more than that, it wasn't just your story. It was now their story too.
That was it, right?
Yeah.
Why did that energy shift? Is because it wasn't tangent, like it wasn't that it was unrelated. It was the heart of the work. It wasn't just a cute story. It was, oh, this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what we do. And so, yeah. And you said something interesting. You're like, we use story, and that's sort of foundational to who we are as humans. I think that's not just a small point to skate over. Let's think about that for a second.
Yeah.
I tell students all the time, when we're dealing with data, like I teach students to do things like community assessments. It's important, right? But the reality is that most of human history, we've not been dealing with data.
Yeah, that's right.
Data's a new thing.
Yeah.
Humans have been around for thousands of years. Longer in various forms, right? But data? That's like 100 years.
Right. Yeah. There's no cave drawing of a pie chart or a spreadsheet, right? The oral histories did not include conversations about bar charts, and so
why do I bring that up?
Yeah. Why? Well, I think it's important because as we've been doing this work for so long, we have come to the conclusion that data is important, but without some story attached to that data to help sort of digest it, to help make it personal, it just falls flat.
Because we're not really wired for it.
No, that's right.
As beings, we're wired for story. We've been telling stories forever.
Yeah.
Like as long as there's been a campfire, we've been gathering around it.
Yep.
And we've been relating to one another about what's important through story. So the question becomes like, how is data related to that? And when I'm talking to students about this, I often tell them the story of, do you know the story of the Essex?
Isn't that a ship?
Yeah, right.
I remember this. Yeah.
It's this whaling ship. And a lot of people know about it because it's sort of the story that helped inspire Moby Dick. Because it was a whaling ship that was actually, it was sunk by a whale. And so all of the crew, so all the crew ends up in their lifeboats. And then there's this really interesting decision moment because they know that there's this coast that is just way too far for them to be able to get to with the supplies that they had in these lifeboats. And if they go to this coast, they're going to run out of supplies and most of them are going to die. Or there's this other coast in the other direction that is much closer. They know it's much closer. Which one do you go to?
The one that's closer, right?
Obviously, right?
Yeah.
That's data.
That's data. Yeah.
Here's the wrench. That's the data. That's the known information. That's the miles to here versus miles to here.
Right. Simple decision.
But the closer coast, there were stories that island was inhabited by cannibals.
Oh, I do remember this.
The story so powerfully affected the narrative imagination, right? That people could imagine this horrible death of being eaten by cannibals, that they turned their boats and headed to what was surely death for many of them, if not all of them. And what happened? Many of them died en route instead of taking the shorter path. The reason I bring that up to students is because if you want to know the power of story, it's me looking at that data and going, I'm going to take my chances with the ridiculous journey that doesn't have a hope of us all surviving it. Because this story is real scary. That's what story means to humans. Now, there are plenty of examples, by the way, in our current moment of really powerful stories that we're afraid of making our decisions kind of counter data.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a conversation for another day. But the reason I bring it up now is that's such a powerful resource for us to use too, working with organizations, working with communities, trying to cast a vision for the future. How do you access the power of story to do the work?
Yeah, I think that's super important. And, you know, one of the ways we do that is we talk about storifying data, right? We lead folks through conversations that help them figure out a way to make this data accessible by couching it in a narrative. It's one thing to say 1 out of 3 children don't have access to oral health care in this area and they'll have poor outcomes. But when you tell the story of, you know, little Jenny, right? And this is a real outcome for her. It makes the difference, right? Storifying the data. It's the same information, but it's humanized.
Right. Or like the group we're working with in Minnesota, we did a lot of data work.
Yeah.
You also spent a lot of time calling people.
Oh, so much time.
Right?
And, you
Why?
know, because I need to hear their story.
That's it.
I mean, I do. I dozens and dozens of conversations, phone calls that, you know, it was not a structured interview. I just wanted to hear the story. And that's exactly what I said to them.
Exactly. So then you show the data from the data work that you did. And then you got the group in front of you and you say, let me tell you what this sounds like.
Yeah.
And you start telling some story that you got from a Zoom call or a phone call with individuals that made the chart that you just flashed up there come to life.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And this thing that we're wired to respond to.
Yeah, it's super powerful. And you can see it in the room. You know, people glaze over sometimes when you throw up a chart or a visualization, unless you're a data geek like I am. But when you say, let me tell you the story. Let me tell you what I heard. Let me tell you what people are excited about or how you have impacted them. That's one of the things that was so powerful. It is so powerful about all of those calls is that I almost never have to ask the question because it comes out in ways that are so organic. This is the impact that they've had on me, my life, this community, and I'm so proud of it. I'm so excited about it.
I love it so much. I'm just laughing because I also know you mentioned like how much of a data geek you are. And on the same project in Minnesota, you came up with the most just out of the box data visualizations, these like crazy radial charts and all this stuff. And every time I came to it, I was like, yeah, that looks amazing. And I see yourself like, you think people are going to get this?
Yeah.
And you're like, I think maybe. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the story, right?
Yeah.
And it's about, it doesn't matter how cool the data is. If you can't attach it to a story, you're going to lose at least some of the room.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I, not that you're one to ever say I told you so. You definitely are one to say I told you so.
I might have just said it on a podcast.
Yeah, but but it definitely happened, and unfortunately, it happened at the table you were working with. When folks looked at that and said, yeah,
I really don't understand this visualization.
Yeah. What's the takeaway here? Yeah.
And I'm going like, let me tell you like what this really means.
Yeah.
What do I shift to?
A story.
That's
right. Yeah. I think you're right. So story is powerful. It is centerpiece really to the way we work with organizations now. And not only do we get better product from it. What I mean by product is a better understanding of where they want to go and articulation of how they want to do it. But excitement about it. Nobody goes to a strategic planning meeting or facilitation.
Theory of change. Woo!
Yay!
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we acknowledge that kind of stuff up front. We're like, look, I don't know how many times you've done this. Most people that are part of an organization that don't lead strategic planning or facilitation only do this maybe a couple, 3, 4 times in a career, right? We do this all the time. And so all you have to have is just one grueling, terrible experience to know that you never want to do that again.
Experience.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But when we start out talking about story, it completely recenters and changes the room and the energy and the trajectory of the entire time we're working with them.
You know what it reminds me of too? That's been a sort of a happy accident that we figured out. Just in, I would say the last, 5 years, maybe. We, like, I think most people, when you're working on strategy, we had always sort of said, all right, let's prioritize some things. We had a nice little process to get to some priorities, some strategic priorities. And then we'd go, okay, so what is our theory of change? And it would be at this conceptual level. And it just never really worked. Like you'd be cooking, the brains are firing, people are energized by the work. They've identified these priorities, and you would get to this point, and you're like, all right, so now solutions. And it wasn't actually that they couldn't imagine solutions, but there was this step that we had provided before where like, okay, but let's think about the strategies conceptually. Let's think about the theory of change, the theory of action. Let's create a logic model or something. And then we'll get to what solutions need to look like.
That's right, yeah.
About 5 years ago, you suggested this in a moment, and we really never looked back.
Yeah.
We instead said, okay, we're going to do the strategic plan for the next 5 years with your community, with your organization, whatever it is. What is the story that in this priority area, like what's the work you would like to create? And what we developed over time, we didn't do it the first time, but when we started moving this direction, we were like, okay, let's spend some time in this priority area and let's really think about root cause. Like how does this challenge present itself? What are the different layers of causation? And then go, what can we imagine being different? And tell that story.
Yeah.
And get people not to think about it conceptually.
No, think about it aspirationally.
Aspirationally and then specifically.
Yeah.
Like narrate this. Like you're doing what in 3 years?
That's right. Yeah.
All of a sudden we got the energy back. People were firing.
Yeah.
Their narrative imaginations are going. They're casting a vision.
That's
like,
right.
oh, we're doing this. We're building that. We're changing the way that we're working. And then we go back and go, all right. And sometimes even after everybody else has left the room, we sit there and go, all right, what strategy was in that story?
Mm-hmm. And it's always there.
And of course.
It's always there.
What's sort of the motivating way of thinking? What is the theory of change sort of being exposed in the story? And then we tease that out and present it back in the process. And all of a sudden, we get all the good stuff without getting lost in the sauce on the concepts.
Yeah, yeah.
And what does it all boil down to? Is the realization that, oh, the strategy is in the story of where we've come from
and where we're going,
where we want to be.
That's right? Exactly right. And it's more fun for us too, because nothing is more demotivating as a participant or a facilitator to be so excited about. We've identified priority areas we are passionate about that we understand now pretty well, and then say, okay. We're not going to talk about where this could go, what it could be. We've got to write down.
Let's take a little bit of time.
Here's a template.
Yeah.
I need you to fill out some goal
organizer.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. And it just sucks the energy right out of it. And, just for anyone that does facilitation, my recommendation would be whatever you do, capture the energy and keep that momentum. Don't lose the energy because of a process. Don't put your process in front of the energy, because the energy will lead you ultimately to a better outcome than you would have gotten if you just forced people through this keyhole that they aren't feeling at the moment, quite frankly.
I mean, it's interesting that you did that. I wanted to ask you particularly, like, we're talking about all of this stuff and we have experienced it. So it kind of makes sense to us about what the next step would be.
Right.
But if you were going to give advice to somebody that's hearing this and go, okay, yeah, we need to like figure out how story leads us to strategy. Mm-hmm. What is like maybe the one step that might be the step that begins to make this make sense? And I've got one, so I'll start, and then I'd be curious what you would say. I would say that the place to start is we spend a lot of time on database decision making in organizations and process. I mean, I can't even tell you the number of times I've seen that on a slide. That people, are talking about, we got to get better decision making systems based in data. All that's actually true. We say the same thing. Give yourself this additional challenge. Any data that you're presenting to a group for decision, also give me a story.
Yeah.
Just have a rule of thumb. Just have a simple heuristic that if we're going to present a chart, I'm going to tell a story. If I'm going to present a number, I'm going to tell a story. Mm-hmm. So that you're hitting people on both levels.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I also think that, the other way to get started in that is to think about, if folks are having trouble wrapping their head around it, you could think about it in the opposite way and say, okay, what's the risk of not doing something to address this, right? Ask them to think about, what does the future look like if we do nothing, if we don't address this? Because that's story too, right?
Yeah.
And so it becomes sort of that, when I was in elementary school, I don't know if you remember these, they had these Batman Which Way books, right? You get to
choose your own adventure.
Yeah, choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
And so you get to choose, right? And so you present them with that dichotomy of, this is what it could be aspirationally now if you do nothing. What do you think? What do you envision happening? And, you have to pick which direction you want to go.
But you're activating the same narrative imagination that we know is so powerful from the Essex story.
That's exactly right. In a way that is helpful in this case.
Correct.
And hopefully you don't end up on hopefully you don't die on the journey. And I don't think there are probably cannibals on the island when it comes to strategic planning.
Note.
Yeah.
On the way, we're out of supplies. We should have picked cannibals.
That probably is a statement that was said
in a journal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what's up along the road here? What's up the road? We're going to have our next episode be focused on an interview. So somebody else we've met along the way in the work. You don't want to miss it. A really cool interview with somebody doing some amazing work.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be
stay
awesome.
tuned for that.
All right. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you up the road.